The palace of the Viorlian Empire floated above the blue world like a crown made of light. From a distance it looked peaceful, almost beautiful, but inside its halls power moved like a living thing. Every step echoed with authority. Every word spoken could change the fate of star systems. Queen Zalithra ruled it all. She was tall even by her species' standards, her skin marked with natural silver lines that showed her age and strength. Warriors bowed when she passed. Generals lowered their eyes. Entire species had surrendered after hearing her name alone. She was not cruel, but she was absolute. So when she announced her marriage, the galaxy paid attention. And when she announced that her chosen consort was human, the galaxy was confused. Humans were new. They were clever, yes, adaptable, yes, but physically fragile compared to most spacefaring races. They had no great empire, no legendary warriors that the stars spoke of. To many, they were interesting, nothing more. Elia's ward stood beside the queen during the ceremony, hands folded behind his back, posture calm but unassuming. He wore the formal robes of the empire, though they clearly were not designed for a human body. He did not look uncomfortable. He did not look proud. He simply looked present. He was average height, average build, dark hair kept short and neat. His face held no scars, no signs of battle. If anything, he looked more like a scholar than a royal consort. The court noticed everything. Whispers flowed like air between nobles. Is that truly the human? When the vows were spoken and the bond was sealed, Queen Zalithra placed her clawed hand over his heart. He met her gaze without fear, without challenge. His eyes held respect and something deeper, understanding. That more than anything was why she chose him, not because he was strong, not because he was impressive. Because when the queen of the Viorlian Empire spoke of duty, of sacrifice, of the weight of command, Elia's ward listened as if he already knew those burdens. Life in the palace settled into a strange rhythm after the marriage. Elias did not demand power. He did not sit on the throne. He attended councils only when invited, and when he spoke little. His words were thoughtful, careful, and never wasted. Many mistook this for weakness. Some even pitied him. The queen's generals watched him closely at first. They expected ambition, fear, or foolish pride. They found none of it. Elias spent time in the archives, learning alien history. He walked the lower gardens where servants gathered, speaking to them like equals. He trained lightly in the palace exercise halls, never pushing himself, never drawing attention. To the court, he was harmless. Queen Zalithra herself was curious. She had expected questions. She had expected doubt. Instead, Elias adapted. He learned her people's customs quickly, respected their traditions, and never tried to change what did not belong to him. One evening, as stars burned softly beyond the palace windows, the queen watched him study a holographic map of the empire. "You are quiet tonight," she said. "So are the stars," Elias replied. "That doesn't mean they aren't moving." At first, they were small. A mining station near the outer systems went silent. A patrol ship failed to report back. Border sensors detected movement, probing, careful, deliberate. The enemy did not announce themselves. They never did. The Karun Collective had watched the Viorlian Empire for decades. They saw the marriage as opportunity. A distraction, a weakness, they struck fast. War alarms rang through the palace, sharp and loud. Councils gathered in minutes. Generals argued over strategy, fleets, and defenses. Queen Zalithra stood at the center of it all, calm as ever. Elias remained at the edge of the chamber. When orders were given, the queen turned to him. "You should remain here," she said. "The palace is safest." No wounded pride. The generals barely looked at him as they rushed out. Hours later, chaos reached closer than anyone expected. A Karun strike force bypassed the outer defenses using stolen codes. Their ships dropped from hyperspace near the capital world itself. Panic spread through civilian sectors. Evacuation routes clogged. Defense forces scrambled, unprepared for an attack so close. One enemy unit slipped through entirely. They landed near the lower districts, far from the palace, but dangerously close to millions of civilians. Elias was there when the first explosions shook the ground. He had been visiting a medical center, speaking with human and alien workers alike when the lights flickered and alarms screamed. The building trembled. Screams followed. Security rushed in, weapons raised, confusion in their movements. "What's happening?" one of the younger guards asked. "Invasion," another replied, voice shaking. Smoke filled the corridor as part of the outer wall collapsed. Through the broken structure, shapes moved, tall, armored, and wrong. Karun soldiers advanced with heavy weapons, their armor thick, their movements brutal. The guards froze. They were trained for order, not chaos. Elias stepped forward. "Listen to me," he said, his voice calm, cutting through the panic. We don't have time to argue. The Karun were closer now. Elias looked at the guards, then at the civilians hiding behind overturned tables and medical pods. "Give me a weapon," he said. The guards hesitated. "That's ceremonial law." One guard handed him a weapon mounted on the wall, a relic plasma launcher meant for honor displays, not real combat. Alien-made, heavy, complex. Elias checked its charge, adjusted its settings with quick, practiced movements that none of them recognized. "How do you know how to use that?" someone whispered. Elias did not answer. The Karun breached the hall. What happened next shattered every assumption made about him. Elias moved, not fast in a wild way but efficient, purposeful. He used cover, angles, timing. He fired once, disabling the lead attacker's armored joints. Another shot collapsed part of the ceiling, blocking the corridor. He shouted clear, precise commands. "Fall back to the stairwell." Far away in the command center, Queen Zalithra received a fragmented report. Civilian district secured, enemy unit neutralized, casualties minimal. There was one line that caught her attention. "Defense coordinated by human consort." "We are confirming details." The lower districts were still shaking when the first emergency shuttles arrived. Smoke drifted through broken streets, and warning lights painted everything in harsh red tones. Medics moved quickly, guiding the injured, calming the frightened. The air smelled of burnt metal and fear. Elias Ward stood near the remains of the medical center wall, watching silently. He handed the plasma launcher back to the guard who had given it to him. The alien's hands trembled as he took it. "I didn't know humans fought like that," the guard said quietly. Elias gave a small shrug. "We don't like fighting, but we learn fast." More security forces arrived, weapons ready, eyes scanning the area. When they saw Elias, confusion spread. Some saluted, others hesitated. Orders had not prepared them for this. A senior officer approached, tall and armored, her crest marked with command rank. "Consort Ward," she said carefully, "the Queen requests your immediate return to the palace." "Of course." Holographic displays showed fleet movements, enemy formations, and damage reports. The Karun Collective had committed more forces than expected. This was not a raid. This was a message. Queen Zalithra stood before the central display, her claws folded behind her back. When Elias entered, conversation slowed. Eyes followed him. He felt them. He ignored them. The Queen turned. For a moment, she said nothing. She studied him the way one studies a puzzle that suddenly refuses to fit its frame. "You were involved in the defense of the lower districts," she said. "Yes," Elias replied simply. "You coordinated troops." "We adapt." Strategic planning, emergency response, before I ever left human space. Their commanders were learning, adapting faster than expected. One general spoke the truth no one wanted to hear. "If this continues, they will reach the inner worlds within days." "You assume much for a consort," one said sharply. Elias didn't react. "They want you to defend everything. That way you defend nothing well." A murmur spread through the room. "That system is heavily defended," a general said. "Yes," Elias replied, "but its defenses are automated, predictable. The Karun will sacrifice ships to map response patterns, then they'll hit when the system thinks it's safe. Prepare countermeasures." The human consort had seen what seasoned commanders had missed. In the following days, Elias was invited to councils he had never attended before. He never took control. He never raised his voice. He simply asked questions others had stopped asking. "What happens if we lose this?" The Karun noticed. Their attacks became sharper, more aggressive, less cautious. They were angry now. One night, as the palace rested uneasily, Queen Zalithra stood with Elias on a balcony overlooking the world below. Fires still burned in the distance. "You hide your strength," she said. Elias looked at the horizon. "Strength is loud. Survival is quiet." Their target was not a military base. It was the capital world itself. Panic swept the palace. Civilian evacuation was impossible at this scale. Queen Zalithra turned to Elias. "If they reach orbit." To the surprise of the court, the Queen allowed it. Elias stood before the transmitters and sent a signal across open space directly to the approaching fleet. The Karun commander responded, curious. A human face appeared on their display. "This is Elias Ward," he said calmly. "You believe humans are weak. You are wrong. Or continue and learn why we survive." Hidden mines detonated, gravitational traps snapped shut, ambush fleets emerged from impossible angles, the Dread Fleet broke, the capital world was saved. When the last enemy ship fled or fell silent, the palace was quiet. Queen Zalithra looked at her consort. Around them, the Empire watched, and for the first time, fear and respect spoke the same word. Human news traveled faster than fleets. Within days, whispers about the human consort reached beyond the Virelian Empire. Merchants spoke of it in quiet stations. Spies recorded it in hidden channels. Even neutral systems began to repeat the same strange story. A human had spoken to a dread fleet and survived. More than that, the fleet had been broken. The Karun Collective did not deny the defeat, but they did not explain it either. That silence worried many. When a species like the Karun stopped boasting, it meant they were thinking. Inside the Virelian palace, the mood shifted again. Confidence replaced panic, but it was careful confidence, the kind built on understanding that the enemy was not finished. Elia's ward became a constant presence in the war councils now, still quiet, still respectful, but no longer ignored. He stood behind Queen Zalithra as fleets moved and systems glowed on the great display. Generals listened when he spoke. Some still resisted, but fewer than before. "You have changed our war," one commander said during a council meeting. It was not praise, it was a statement. Elias shook his head. "No, you already had everything you needed. You just needed to look at it differently." Their high command gathered in silence aboard a massive war station deep in their territory. The screens showed battle data, loss estimates, and intercepted communications. "The human is the problem," one commander said. "A single individual cannot change the nature of war," another replied. "He already has." "This is not alien thinking," one strategist admitted. "This is something colder." Human relief ships responded. None returned. The footage that followed spread across the galaxy. Human ships disabled, crews captured, no cruelty shown, no mercy either. The message was clear: we can learn you too. When the report reached the Virelian palace, Queen Zalithra slammed her claw against the command rail. "They target humans now. That's why we learned not to panic." Dangerous and very human. Instead of responding with force, Elias ordered all human trade routes closed. All human ships pulled back. To the galaxy, it looked like retreat. The Karun celebrated. Then the second phase began. Human engineers worked with Virelian scientists, sharing ideas openly for the first time. Not weapons at first, but systems, redundancies, fail-safes. Small improvements that added up. Elias pushed one idea above all others: unpredictability. Virelian fleets stopped following known formations. Supply routes shifted randomly. Communication patterns changed daily. The Karun struggled to track it. Frustration grew. Then Elias did something no one expected. He leaked information, false information. Carefully crafted reports about human refugee convoys moving through unguarded space. Vulnerable, easy targets. The Karun took the bait. Their strike force arrived to find nothing. Instead, they found silence. Space went dark. Human electronic warfare systems activated, designed not to destroy but to blind. Sensors failed. Targeting systems froze. Communication collapsed. Virelian fleets emerged from hidden positions. The battle was swift and brutal. This time, the Karun commander survived long enough to understand the trap. "This is not war," he transmitted before his ship was disabled. "This is hunting." Uncertainty meant danger. Neutral powers began reaching out to the Virelian Empire. Alliances once impossible were now discussed, not because of Queen Zalithra alone, but because she stood beside a human who changed the rules. The queen noticed the shift in how others looked at Elias. So did she? One night she asked him directly, "If your species is so capable, why do you not rule the stars?" They breached an intersection, bypassing defenses meant to stop armies, not individuals. Elias was walking alone when the attack came. Energy fire scorched the corridor. Walls cracked. Alarms screamed. The assassins were fast, strong, trained for killing leaders. Elias ran, not away, toward them. He used the environment, pulling emergency barriers down, flooding sections with smoke, forcing the attackers to separate. One by one, he neutralized them, not with rage, with focus. When palace guards arrived, it was over. Elias stood among disabled enemies, breathing steady. Queen Zalithra arrived moments later. She looked at him differently now, not as a consort, not as an advisor, but as something equal. The Karun never attempted another assassination. They had learned enough. As the war slowed, the galaxy changed. Humanity was no longer underestimated, and Elias' ward could no longer remain in the shadows. He knew it. The queen knew it. And far beyond known space, something older than the Karun had begun to pay attention. because humanity had finally shown the galaxy how it survived. And survival, once noticed, invites greater tests. The war with the Karun slowed, but peace did not come. Space grew quiet in a way that made experienced commanders uneasy. Trade resumed carefully. Fleets returned to patrol routes, borders stabilized. On the surface, it looked like victory. Elia's ward did not trust it. He stood alone in the palace observation chamber, watching distant stars drift across the wide glass. His hands were folded behind his back, his posture relaxed, but his mind was working constantly. Queen Zalithra entered without announcement. She had learned that Elias did not need ceremony. "You feel it too," she said. "Yes," he replied. "They are no longer the greatest danger." A single signal had appeared at the edge of known space. It did not match any known species. It did not move like a ship. It did not transmit language. It simply existed. Sensors struggled to define it. Mass readings changed without reason. Energy output fluctuated in ways that broke known physics. The council gathered in silence. "This object has been observing our conflicts," a scientist said. "Historical data suggests it has been present before major collapses of other civilizations. If it wanted us gone, we would already be gone. We would go because anything that powerful doesn't need tricks." The object was massive yet smooth, like a piece of night shaped into form. No weapons, no visible engines. It absorbed light instead of reflecting it. A voice filled the ship, not through sound, through thought. "We have observed you. You adapt faster than predicted. We spread survival, not because it was violent, but because it refused to follow expectations. You will be removed," the presence stated calmly. "Humanity's influence will be ended." "Explain." "And when we're pushed, we change the rules. You can try to erase us and risk consequences you can't fully predict. Or you can let us exist and learn from us." Or seconds, then the voice returned. "We will observe further. An entity that judges civilizations." Queen Zalithra called Elias to a private chamber that night. "You could have chosen differently," she said. "You could have offered humanity's withdrawal, isolation. Someone has to. And that to forces older than stars was the most dangerous outcome of all. The galaxy did not return to normal after the ancient presence vanished. Normal no longer existed. Trade routes reopened, but caution filled every jump. Fleets patrolled, but commanders now watched the dark between stars as much as they watched their enemies. Every species knew the same truth. Something was watching. And humanity stood at the center of its attention. Elia's ward became a symbol whether he wanted it or not. Messages arrived daily from distant systems. Some asked for advice, some asked for protection, some asked dangerous questions about humans. He answered very few. Queen Zalithra watched the change carefully. She noticed how Elias grew quieter, not from fear, but from weight. He carried responsibility the way gravity carries worlds, constantly without rest. Then the final test came. It did not arrive as an attack, it arrived as an opportunity. A coalition of powerful empires gathered near neutral space. They sent a joint request to the Virelian Empire. They wanted Elia's ward present, not as a consort, not as an advisor, but as a representative of humanity. The council chamber was tense when the message ended. "They want to use him," a general said. "They fear him," another replied. Queen Zalithra turned to Elias. "You do not have to go." Its halls were wide, its air neutral, its security overwhelming. Delegates from dozens of species gathered. Elias walked beside Queen Zalithra, his pace steady. Whispers followed him, not mocking this time, measuring. The assembly began with careful words, praise for unity, statements about peace, warnings about instability. Then the real question came. A representative from a powerful empire spoke. "Humanity disrupts balance. You alter wars. You attract forces older than civilizations. Why should the galaxy allow your continued expansion?" "We didn't come to conquer," Elias continued. "We came because survival forced us to reach out. Every system we entered changed us too." A warning to forces beyond understanding. At last, the question no one wanted to ask was spoken. What happens when the ancient watchers decide again? "Alone if you don't." "We have observed your choice," the voice said. Elias closed his eyes briefly. "Then you know we won't submit." "We are the proof that survival does not require perfection," he said. "Only refusal to end." Queen Zalithra stood with Elias once more at the great window. "You changed the galaxy," she said. He shook his head. "No, I reminded it that it can change." "You did." Humans and aliens worked side by side, not as masters and subjects, but as survivors sharing a future that could no longer be predicted. And far beyond the stars, the universe adjusted, because humanity had done what it always did. It refused to fit the shape it was given, and that refusal changed everything. The alien queen believed. She married a modest man until she saw him in action, HFY Stories.